Hi everybody, it's Laura Kingen. It's 1:03. I'm pretty much on time, yay! Anyway, welcome. I am an occupational therapist and my business is Sensory Solutions, Inc. Here's my reverse business card. Maybe someday I'll actually print it so that it'll be right side. My phone number, best number to reach me is my cell at 631-848-8852, but you can also PM me through Facebook. The topic today is range of motion, ROM. I want to offer range of motion to the community. Weird times. Can we do this through telehealth? I believe we can. Before, I guess I can stand up. Before all this kind of happened, I was working on a clinic, and one of the biggest things that I wanted to offer was range of motion clinics to the community. To have people come in and work as a group makes it more affordable. But the idea is to help somebody with their flexibility. So on a one-to-one basis, that individual can have, how do I want to say, that I can help work on their flexibility. But the other part of the range of motion clinic is to also teach caregivers. So I have to be very careful. As a state licensed occupational therapist, I can provide therapy in the state of Arizona. But that's where it ends. However, I can do education really anywhere. And that's really what I would like to do. And to me, that meets several needs. Again, the caregivers get to learn. At the same time, the clients who have some limitations in range of motion actually get some movement. So I wanted to just share a couple things with you today. Talk about a couple disabling conditions that might require some range of motion. And then that way you can also see me in action. I still have accessibility to a clinic, so I can see people at the clinic if you would like. But now we have this whole great thing called telehealth. I actually have a program that's different than Zoom. It's TheraPlatform. It is HIPAA compliant. There's also billing through that, so you can just pay, boom, taken care of, very secure. So those issues that Zoom was having, hopefully should never happen with this. So I still would like to run range of motion clinics, and I have officially scheduled my first telehealth range of motion clinic for tomorrow at 1 o'clock. It would be in a group, but the idea is to make it more affordable for people, especially during these times. And you know, if you guys have financial issues, contact me. Heaven knows people have been helping me out too, because I need to work too. I need to do more of this. We all need to make a living through this, right? So anyway, I think that's all the preliminary things I wanted to kind of talk about. So let's talk about a couple of different conditions. Let's say, for example, you were at work and you were reaching, and you reached too far and you hurt your shoulder, or you fell, had surgery. There's something called frozen shoulder. And what happens sometimes when we have these injuries is it hurts to move, so we tend to keep it tight. But if you do that for too long, you may actually lose the ability to, well, no, if you lose the ability to move your arm, but you'll lose the ability to move it completely through a full range. So if that's the case and you need some help, it gets tight, come to an occupational therapist. Let me show you what I might do. Let me have my first patient. My first patient of the day, diagnosis is frozen shoulder. Now, he hurt it, let's say, in his occupation. Most of us use our hands. I mean, I'm an occupational therapist. It's about occupation and using our hands. So he's having some problems with his work because of this injury. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'll do some different techniques and I'm going to move it around. Let's see, first of all, I need to do a diagnosis, or let me rephrase that. I am not a diagnostician. That's only really for a doctor. I'm going to assess. So the diagnosis is frozen shoulder. What I'm going to do in my evaluation is look and see how much range he has. Like, for example, one of the things I'll do is ask him about moving his own arm. That's called active range of motion. If I was moving his arm, that would be passive range of motion. He's the one that's actively moving. So go ahead and move your arm just like this. So you can see there's some limitations. You see how he's keeping it tight? He's kind of struggling a little bit. Okay, so go ahead and relax. So clearly there's some limitation of movement. So for my treatment plan, let's say my main goal is increase movement, or the main goal might be to return him back to work. So then the treatment plan would be, how do we start? How do we do that? How do we go about doing that? One of the ways is for me to come and provide some passive range of motion. Now, let me interject. As an occupational therapist, we use activities. So ideally, I might do some passive movement, but then in my treatment, I might actually have prescribed activities of what he can do, whether he does it in a therapy session or does it on his own, that can also help move his arm. I think a classic OT activity is like moving cones, which to me is kind of, forgive me, boring. I want to know in my assessment process what activities he likes to do, and is there an activity I can modify that he likes to do that will help work on building that range. Like, for example, let's say he hurt himself, like I said earlier, reaching for something. Well, I may give him some activities, reaching activities, but not quite at the range, at the, how do I want to say, the range of movement. I may want to just, this is where the cones come in, placing cones like this. You may start just very, very close to the body, and then start working out farther, and then start reaching. That's part of the creativity and the art of occupational therapy. But I want to bring it back down and just go to the basics and show you what I'm talking about with range of motion, and really what my intent is with range of motion clinics. So see, I would come in here, and then I would come in, and then see, there's still some resistance here. I can hear his breathing. Nice job. We want to work these different joints. Granted, for frozen shoulder, it's going to be primarily this joint, but depending on what the other conditions are, we may have other joints involved as well. So, for example, let's say somebody has a stroke. So go ahead and lie down. Let's put your head here. Put your knees on top of the bolster. Go ahead and move down some more. Goes under your neck. So I know this is a little awkward. Hopefully you can see this. So I showed you a little bit about the shoulder. Now let's say this person is hypertonic, which means the muscle tone is tight, very tight, hard to move, as opposed to somebody who is hypotonic, where they're all floppy. Somebody with Down syndrome is a classic hypotonic. Their muscle strength is kind of weak. It's not so much with the hypertonicity that the muscles are really strong. It's just that they're tight and constantly firing, so that there's no release. So that's still an issue. So with this patient, it's a hypertonicity. His muscle tone is high, tight. It's hard to move his muscles. So come to therapy session and we work on trying to increase that range. And again, depending on where I'm at and what my treatment plan says, I may actually want to just put him into an activity. But for right now, for purposes of this demo and the range of motion clinic, I just want you to see some basic range of motion. Now with the stroke, the legs are also involved. So what happens? See, he's very stiff. So we want to work this motion. This knee probably won't bend today. There's other things we can do. Okay? So what happens at the hip is very similar to what happens at the shoulder. Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about the difference between OT and PT. PTs tend to work on the legs. OTs tend to work on the arms. Go get it. I kind of already talked a little bit about that. With the OTs, with hands and occupation, we tend to use activities in our treatment, whereas a physical therapist tends to work more with the legs and more with exercise. So if you ever go into a PT clinic, typically you'll see like the stairs, a lot of exercise equipment. It's more exercise oriented and it's more related to the legs. With OT, it's more related to the hands and activity. That's a very generic, basic differentiation between the two because there are overlaps. So I wanted to differentiate that. Even though as an occupational therapist, I can do arms and legs, do the whole body. I guess that's all I wanted to say on that. Let's have a third disabling condition. I know there's a lot of you out there that have multiply involved children. And hopefully some of you are actively ranging your kids regularly. But if not, or if you want a refresher, whatever, that might be an opportunity to come to our range of motion clinics and learn. So let's say, for example, you have somebody with cerebral palsy. I just happen to have a patient here on my couch. Most people don't have a treatment table, but you have a couch. Now, positioning and safety is hugely important. And we can get into some of those issues in the range of motion clinic, but I just want to do a basic demo for the purposes of today. So you've got your child on the couch. Same kind of principles apply. We want to see, he's tight. He hasn't been moved. And you know how hard it is to change a shirt? I'm joking, but seriously. Any of you who work with anybody with tight tone, you know how hard it is to take a shirt on and off. You get larger shirts or whatever. And sometimes some people are on like baclofen or some medication to reduce the hypertonicity. And I know sometimes people can get really cranky. You know, it affects their mood if they're tight and they're unable to function really well. It does affect quality of life. So again, you know, I can help walk you guys through doing some range of motion with somebody, like say on the couch. I think that's it. Okay, thank you. So, that's about what I wanted to show you all today. And then just explain to you a little bit more about I'm available to work. You can PM me. Again, my phone number is area code 631-848-8852. You can PM me. I can do individual sessions. But again, I was just thinking as far as what could be of good service to the community is doing group kinds of sessions. I'm open to other topics. I'm thinking that this is helpful. I'm hoping. I appreciate feedback. I'm unsure about next week, if there's a particular topic you all might be interested in. I was even thinking of just showing you the platform system of what I'm using online. Kind of boring. But I was thinking ball skills, we can set up obstacle courses. I mean, eventually what I'd like to do is also, let me rephrase that. The eventually is now. Effective next week at 3 o'clock, I plan on doing a group sensory activity. And I'll promote it and I'll put some activity equipment that you might have at home. What I'd like to do is encourage you all to come and participate. I want to set up an activity and see about you all adapting and modifying whatever you can do similarly in your home. And we can kind of all do it together. So it's me, I can do screen share, so we can have other families, say 3 or 4 families, working kind of together. And then as each family participates in the activity, I can give some feedback or make some suggestions. Why don't you try this or try that? It's a new time. It's a new way of doing things. Again, I have to be really careful about doing therapy and prescribed activity if the individual has no evaluation first. We really need to do an evaluation first. But I also want to offer something. So if I do it on a more educational basis, then I feel like I'm legal. Because I do hold a license, I have to be careful about that. I have strict boundaries of where I can work. So next week, 3 o'clock, I am planning on a group activity. I'm going to charge for it though. And I ask if you are interested to please connect with me at least an hour beforehand. And the way, if you really do want to start being involved in therapy, this is kind of what I was jumping ahead for next week, but contact me, I'll talk with you. Basically, I just need your email, and I can send you an email. And then as a lot of you probably are getting familiar with the telehealth, there's a patient portal in my system. And so, pay ahead of time, and then we can just go and have some fun. Bring your questions, bring issues, that you would bring to an occupational therapist, and use that as a forum. So next Wednesday, what is that, the 29th, I think, at 3 o'clock. That's a more sensory-oriented group. And then tomorrow, and then subsequent Thursdays, at least for the time being, let's do this. 1 o'clock, range of motion clinics. Again, check in with me at least an hour beforehand, so that we can get you set up in the system. And it's a lot like Zoom, where once you're in the system, it's just a link, and you press the link, and it hooks you into this online system. So for right now, I've been doing these online Facebook demos, but my SSI room is a much more secure platform, because that is another consideration when we do groups, is privacy with the people in the groups. So I do have some legal forms that would need to be signed, permission, and making sure you are informed about just this whole online security issue and all that. So I'm getting set up, I'm ready to go, and I hope I can be of good service to you all. Best way to reach me, I guess, is PM me on Facebook, or call me, text me on my cell, 631-848-8852. Thank you so much. Be safe. There's a lot of people dying out there these days. We are all connected. We are all part of this. And what we do affects others. That's the good news and the not so good news. So there is a sense of personal responsibility we all need to take, because I think we're all really tired of just kind of being stuck at home. But I think that's what we need to do as much as possible so that this can finally move on. Take good care, everybody. Be safe, and let me know if I can be of service to you. Thank you so much.